Hello everyone, I am Aegon the Informer, and I am here today to break down the opening intro of Season 2 of House of the Dragon. The opening intro begins with threads of fabric that are commonly used for the creation of wall tapestries. However, for the context of this intro, these threads actually represent the threads of life being dipped into ancient Valyrian blood. This blood then starts flowing down the very same old Valyrian tower that we see in the opening intro of Season 1. However, that opening intro symbolized the family tree of the Targaryens. And then right after this, we see the following image. Now, I'd like you to please put a pin on it. Actually, put a pin on the following 3 images. The reason is, we'll get back to them at the very end of the video, since it will be the longest explanation out of the whole opening intro. And so instead, let's begin right here with the Doom of Valyria, which was also depicted in the opening intro of Season 1, with dragons falling down from the sky, and the island of Valyria getting destroyed by the volcanic eruption. And then the opening intro continues by following the arrival of House Targaryen in Westeros, being led by Balerion the Dread, being ridden by Aegon the Conqueror, with right next to him, Rhaenys and Meraxes, and the Green Dragon being, of course, Vhagar and Dowager Queen Visenya. And then the intro continues with Aegon's conquest of Westeros, starting with the death of Argalic the Arrogant during the battle called The Last Storm, which you can hear all about in my last video called Anatomy of a Dragon. However, my second favorite part of this entire intro has to be this image. In my opinion, this image is a major visual representation of why somebody should support Team Green. Actually, subscribe to this channel because I just might make a video explaining to everybody why Team Green is the best team to support. Indeed, the hand that you see in the opening credit is actually the hand of the House Gardener sigil. In this image, we can see a visual representation of the final moments before the complete extinction of House Gardener of Highgarden, which occurred during the famous Battle of the Field of Fire, when Aegon, Rhaenys, and Visenya surrounded the armies of the two kings, which ended up costing the lives of countless highborn Westerosi people. And the only reason why House Lannister survived this battle and House Gardener didn't is because House Lannister, when they saw that the battle was going to be lost, escaped. And then the intro continues with the end of Aegon's conquest of Westeros, with the kneeling of 3 major Westerosi houses, starting with the crown representing Torrhen Stark, King in the North, and who in this famous visual representation kneeled before Aegon the Conqueror. The second house represented in this tapestry is House Arryn. This is a reference to how Visenya Targaryen conquered the Vale by flying Vhagar directly to the courtyard of the Eyrie. There she found a young King Ronald, who was amazed when he saw Vhagar. Shortly after that, his mother entered the courtyard and was shocked to find her son, the King Ronald, to be sitting on Visenya's lap, and behind them was Vhagar. And last but not least, the third great house in this tapestry is Edmund Tully kneeling before Aegon the Conqueror, right before the burning of Harrenhal, where the house of Harren the Black went extinct as well. And it is now only at this point of the story that Aegon the Conqueror creates the 3-headed dragon sigil of House Targaryen, following his conquest of the 7 kingdoms. And then right after this, we see the Red Keep and King's Landing. And that is because it is at this moment that Aegon the Conqueror builds the Iron Throne and also names the place where he and his sisters landed as King's Landing. However, notice how in this image, King's Landing is now fully fortified and the Red Keep is also fully built. This was actually the work of both Maegor the Cruel, who built the Red Keep, which is why there are so many secret passages, because he was super paranoid, and the redesign of King's Landing by Jaehaerys the Conciliator, which Jaehaerys ordered shortly after the death of Maegor the Cruel, which we can see on this visual representation from the book The World of Ice and Fire. And the two dragons on each side of the throne actually represent the arrival of Jaehaerys the Conciliator on Vermithor and good Queen Alysanne on Silverwing. This actually shortly followed by the wedding of Queen Alysanne and King Jaehaerys. But notice how there is the 7-pointed star at the bottom left. That is because the wedding is being performed by the High Septon himself. And the reason why the 7-pointed star is being bloodied is another proof convincing me that this entire intro is actually pro Team Green. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this High Septon is actually performing this wedding against the will of the Fate of the Seven, which denounces incestuous marriages. And the reason why he's scared that the Fate of the Seven will get bloodied again is because the last time that the Fate of the Seven denounced Maegor the Cruel's marriage to another wife that wasn't Ceres Hightower, he flew Balerion to the Sept of Remembrance and set it ablaze, killing 700 warriors' sons. And now the opening intro finally reaches episode 1 of season 1 of House of the Dragon with this visual representation of the Great Council of 101. The intro then continues with the famous dinner scene where Jaehaerys Velaryon asked Helaena Targaryen for a dance in front of her husband Aegon, during which also Rhaenyra Targaryen and Queen Alicent did their best to get along. We then witness the birth of a new banner. That is the banner of Team Green, represented by Aegon II's dragon, Sunfire the Golden. And then we have, of course, Rhaenyra representing Team Black on her throne in Dragonstone. And under them, we see their hands. One representing Otto Hightower, and the other representing probably Corlys Velaryon, who is the hand of Rhaenyra Targaryen. And the reason why I believe that the ravens represent Otto Hightower, and I may be wrong, but that is because Otto Hightower believes, just like Tywin Lannister, that wars are won using quills and ravens, whereas Corlys Velaryon believes that the one who will win the war will be the one who has the most dragons. And then the intro comes to an end with the famous death of Lucerys Velaryon, which triggered the Dance of the Dragons, when Aemond One-Eye chased and ultimately killed Lucerys Velaryon. However, even though the intro ends here, our video doesn't, because remember, I asked you to put a pin on one of the most mysterious parts of the whole intro, which we're now going to analyze. And so, now the real question becomes, what exactly is this creature in this image, and what does it represent? And so, to answer this question, I went to the A Song of Ice and Fire subreddit. There, I made a post asking about theories on what this image represents, and I got many of them. But one of my favorite was by far Aegon the Handwiper, who put me towards the right direction for the following theory. First, let's read his post. My guess is that it's a representation of a Valyrian Sphinx, and a reference to the theories that Valyrians used blood magic and monstrous crossbreeding to literally give themselves the blood of the dragon. Possibly why they can control them while other people can't. And the images to the left appear to be Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa. And indeed, Aegon the Handwiper was absolutely correct on the Valyrian Sphinx part, because on this image from the A Song of Ice and Fire 2020 calendar, we actually see a representation of a Valyrian Sphinx, and their wings look a lot like the one in the Tapestry with spiky edges. As well as the creature's head, which seems to have similar pointy ears as well as fangs. Last but not least, the creature's tail is very similar to the one from the 2020 calendar, having a similar pointy edge. But in my opinion, the best part about Aegon the Handwiper's Reddit reply, which he was the only one to mention, is this part about Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa, which I would have never thought of otherwise. Indeed, it is a breakthrough revelation for me because of three things that I want us to focus on. First, it looks like the sword has already stabbed something and is now already drenched in blood. And the proof that it has already stabbed something are the pieces of something that seem to still be stuck to the sword. And now, with that very same bloody sword, which has already stabbed something, he's about to stab the heart of the young woman in this picture. And the reason why this is very relevant to me is because of the following passage, which Salador San says in Book 2 of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Clash of Kings.
That sword was not Lightbringer, my friend. A burning sword, corrected Davos. Burnt, said Saladhor San, and be glad of that, my friend. Do you know the tale of the forging of Lightbringer? I shall tell it to you. It was a time when darkness lay heavy on the world. To oppose it, the hero must have a hero's blade, oh, like none that had ever been. And so for 30 days and 30 nights, Azor Ahai labored sleepless in the temple, forging a blade in the sacred fires. Heat and hammer and fold, heat and hammer and fold, oh yes, until the sword was done. Yet when he plunged it into water to temper the steel, it burst asunder. The second time it took him 50 days and 50 nights, and this sword seemed even finer than the first. Azor Ahai captured a lion to temper the blade by plunging it through the beast's red heart, but once more the steel shattered and split. Great was his woe, and great was his sorrow then, for he knew what he must do. 100 days and 100 nights he labored on the third blade, and as it glowed white-hot in the sacred fires, he summoned his wife. Nisa, Nisa, he said to her, for that was her name, bare your breast, and know that I love you best of all that is in this world. She did this thing, why I cannot say, and Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon, but her blood and her soul and her strength and her courage all went into the steel. Such is the tale of the forging of Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes.
And these passages in red are the ones that tell us that this is a very similar, if not the same, ritual as the one in the opening intro. And the reason why I would have never thought of Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa is because Azor Ahai performed this ritual in Westeros 8,000 years before the Doom of Valyria, which is when I realized that Aegon the Handwiper was almost right, but not totally right. And that the two people in this picture are not actually Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa, but they are two people from Old Valyria that are performing a very similar, if not the same, ritual. And it also seems like whoever was being sacrificed in the opening intro also needed to be loved by somebody. Just like Azor Ahai loved Nissa Nissa, it seems to make the blood ritual that much stronger. And maybe, just maybe, the goal of the sacrificial blood ritual was to give the young woman in mourning the power to ride and control dragons. Since, in the story of Azor Ahai, the one who benefits from the sacrificial blood ritual is also the one who has to lose the person that they loved. In this case, the young girl or boy seems to be mourning the death of her mother. And this theory, where the person who has to lose the person that they love gaining the power to ride and control dragon, is the first part of Aegon the Handwiper's theory, which a lot of people seem to share in the subreddit. However, this theory didn't make that much sense to me until the Redditor Mersault26 added this important piece of information. The old Valyrian sphinxes aren't really elaborated in the published books, but in an early draft of A Feast for Crows, found in the Cushing Library, they are mentioned to have really existed before the fall of Valyria. Mersault26 believes that old Valyrian sphinxes are part human, part dragon, created through blood magic, and that their DNA was spliced back into dragon rider bloodlines to give them the blood of the dragon, which allows a person to magically bond with a dragon. I would further theorize, though this part is much more speculative, adds Mersault26, that the white worms with human hands that came out of Arya Targaryen were a stage of the Sphinx life cycle as they were adapting parts of her DNA, hence the human hands. In this image, I would guess the woman is partaking in some sort of ritual to merge the Sphinx's blood with hers, or maybe creating it in the first place, or maybe just worshipping it. It's unclear, but her arms look weird, like she might be holding something. The crossbreeding that Mersal26 is talking about here would have been made using the fireworms pictured on the left, who were supposedly able to breathe fire, along with the winged Valyrian Sphinx, which we know now existed in Old Valyria. And the only reason why this theory could possibly make sense is that we see something in the opening intro which doesn't look like blood that is coming out of the Sphinx. Are these the bloodworms? For me, this is the only evidence that might prove this theory. Otherwise, I see no trace of bloodworms in the opening credit scene. And so, here, in this second half, Mersal26 mentioned Arya Targaryen, who had disappeared after riding Balerion and returned later on, very feverish. After the maesters examined her, they found that fireworms with hands were coming out from the inside of her body. And so, in conclusion, for me, there are three possible theories explaining the sacrificial blood ritual, which opens the opening credits of House of the Dragon Season 2. Theory number 1 is that these sacrificial blood rituals were used to create powerful Valyrian steel sword, just like Azor Ahai did with Lightbringer, which he used to end the long night of the White Walkers. Theory number 2, which is the one that most people in the subreddit seem to believe, is that the sacrificial blood rituals are there to give someone the ability to ride and control dragons. And theory number 3 is that these sacrificial rituals were there to crossbreed fireworms and sphinxes into dragons, which would explain why dragons only existed in Old Valyria. And so I will end this video with the following quote from Ryan Condal, which I've included in most of my videos. Generally, it's George and I in communication. I send him everything. I send him outlines. I send him scripts. I send him cuts. I send him text messages. I send him questions. Why did you do this? What does this mean? Who is this person? We stay in constant communication. He's very active and reads a lot and gives a lot of feedback. Other times, he just sort of defers and says, "Go with the gods." Now, if you've made it this far in the video, I would like to please ask you to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. I have a lot of plans coming up in the future. I have many more videos about Season 2 of House of the Dragon in progression. The reason why I've been late into making videos about Season 2 is because I was moving, and my move started right when the first episode launched, which delayed all of my videos. But from now on, stay tuned, subscribe, click on the notification bell because videos will be coming. I am Aegon the Informer, and you have been informed.